Well, hello everyone, and it's Anna Olson here. Same baker, same happy girl, but in a different location. And one of the reasons I am so happy is I am speaking to you live from the south of France. Yes, on a bit of a holiday, but also here for you so we can bake and talk about fall flavors at the same time. So yes, we're in a different kitchen setting, but that I'm still going to walk you through this great recipe, obviously inspired by the south of France. This French apple tart is known as tarte fine aux pommes, and it's a thin apple tart that is so easy to prepare. So it's one of those recipes that you can just think about making and be making it. And I know some of you are baking along with me. So a special hello to Charlotte and Eloise and your mom, Una. Auntie Coco says hello and is so glad that you are assembling this tart along with me. So I already saw you have all your ingredients ready. You have your pastry ready. If you're baking along, you'll see the recipe is below. You want to make sure you preheat your oven to 200 degrees Celsius. That's 400 Fahrenheit if you're making in North America. I do have to say hello to Hermione. It's nice to see you back. I know we've changed our time slot. I'm on your time. And so for those of you in North America joining me at 12 noon or even earlier, depending where you're watching from, thank you. Bonnie, I wish you were closer down the street because you would just love this weather. It's been fantastic. But let's get into it. This apple tart is not about cinnamon. It's not about spice blends. It's not even about a traditional North American pie pastry. You're going to use a sheet of puff pastry, which if you have it on hand, if you'd like, you can cut it to an 8-inch round, but don't worry if it's not exactly 8 inches or 20 centimeters. You can make your tart bigger or smaller as you wish. And because this apple tart only uses it only has a thin layer of apples, that you only use 1 large or 2 small apples. Your variety of apple can vary. As I've learned shopping for apples here in France, we have some common varieties like Granny Smith and Royal Gala and Pink Lady, but those are better for eating. Granny Smith you can use for baking, but if you see anywhere your apple described as tart and juicy, that's the kind of apple you want to bake with, and that's what I have right now. I've already prepped some of my apples, so if you're baking along with me, start peeling your apples, and you'll want to use a melon baller or something similar, even a teaspoon will work, to core your apple, and then we're going to slice it as thinly as possible. So I'll just do this while I'm chatting, and then I can say hello to people on the thread. We've already got 155 people watching, Michael. So you'll be happy to know that I am here with Michael. He's running our cameras, a slightly different setup than we're used to, but we wanted to give you multiple angles and good sound like we always do. Alden is watching from Asia. Yes, I agree. This might be a better time slot for you. We try and balance it out the best we can, so we switch it up here and there. Someone's watching from Colombia with some great weather too, Michael. You'll be happy to know. Oh, and Emily has made this recipe and knows how delicious it is. It is from my latest cookbook, Baking Wisdom. Woo! So I've peeled my apple. Now, just cut it in half from top to bottom, and then using your teaspoon or melon baller, I use it first to scoop out the center core, and I also use it to take off the top and bottom, so that way you have a really pretty apple that once you slice it in half, the slices look attractive because you're going to see these apples as they bake on the tart. Oh, Shah, good to know. It's beautiful in New York City too. We're just having a lovely fall day all around, aren't we? Oh, and someone is watching in the morning from Richmond, BC. I'll actually be in BC. When is that? Mid-November. I'm coming to the West Coast Women's Show in Vancouver, so come on down. I'll prepare different recipes. I'm quite certain. Very good question, Tammy. So I'm going to slice my apples quite thinly as I answer Tammy's question about what's the difference between this tarte fine and a galette. Now, a galette is more of a free-form tart. using pie pastry. So you would roll it out. You don't trim the edges so they're rough. You pile your apples in the center and then you fold over the crust just a little bit. So, and you bake it on a baking tray like this, but this uses puff pastry, different pastry, and we're taking the time to arrange the apples. If you have a mandolin, of course you can use it. And I want you to hang on to these end pieces of the apple because those help actually fill the center. So now I have these nice slices. I would say they're about 2 to 3 millimeters thick. So take your time to do that. I'll just leave the other one. And I'm going to grab my baking tray. It's a rather large one this time. And I've got my puff pastry. I've kept it cold in the fridge. And that's, of course, you want to do that with puff pastry. Work with it as cold as possible. But if you've had it pulled out, Charlotte, don't worry about it. It'll be fine. And I'll place that on my baking tray. And before you start layering the apples, take a fork and just pierce holes in the bottom of the crust. This will help the puff pastry stay level as it bakes under the apples because it only has that thin layer of apples. You don't want it to bake unevenly and start to bubble up. So this helps with that. There we go. And now this is where you just take your time, find your zen, happy place in the kitchen and start arranging those apple slices. So the little end pieces I leave aside for now. And you want to work with the arc of the apple and go pretty close to the edge. We're not building a Napoli pizza and we're not building a North American pie with a big edge to it. So you want to put those apples quite close to the edge of the pastry, like so. And I'm just going to rotate as I go around. That way you can see what I'm up to. I'll hold that aside. Rui, hello. I just saw your note there. And B. Leering, you might have just joined. I don't have a new kitchen, but I have a new location temporarily, just for the next 2 weeks. And I will be back right here in this kitchen with another live stream this time, this date. So next Thursday, 12 noon here in the south of France. And no, 12 noon at home. It's 6 p.m. here. We've already had a full day. And keep arranging those apples. So I arranged them on the outside of the tart first. And then now you may be seeing how there's a bit of a gap in the middle. And if I were to just arrange the next layer of apples overlapping on top, they would fall into the center. So I'm about to fix that. I'm just going to get myself all the way around here. Oh, we've got Marianne watching from Sweden. Wonderful. Well, apples are definitely in season there. And so those little tiny end pieces that you save, the uneven ones, just sort of tuck them underneath. And this props up this outer layer of apples and now gives you a bit of a step stool for your next layer of apples. All those tiny uneven pieces. You can just stack them up. If you wanted to, you could chop them up a little bit. But now that next layer on the interior. If you're doing a larger than a 20 centimeter tart, then you may find you have enough room for 3 rings of apples. But with this size, I find 2 works just absolutely fine. And I'll overlap that next layer of apples. Lots of slices here. And Nabila, hello to you. Hello from Mexico and Brockville. Woo! I love that. I'm going to tuck in just a few more pieces underneath here. All right. And Hermione, yeah, you're right that this tart has the appearance of a tarte tatin, but a tarte tatin, which I did entertain making, but then I would have spent all my time at the stove because it's about caramelizing butter and sugar and adding the apples, and then the pastry gets baked on top, where this tart gets baked with the puff pastry underneath. So this looks lovely and actually has a nice bit of height to it. I'm just gonna rinse my hands off for a second. Those are fresh, juicy apples. There we go. And now what you want to have ready is some melted butter. And don't worry about measuring exactly how much butter you're putting on, but what you want to do is brush a generous but even layer of butter over the apples. Just like so. Thank you, Courtney, for running out and getting this pastry brush when I realized I didn't have one just at the last minute. And you can always retuck your apples in now and even afterwards. And then a light sprinkling, because you're only using 3 tablespoons of butter and 3 tablespoons of sugar. And what's going to happen? Well, that sugar and butter is going to melt with the apple juices as it bakes and create a bit of a caramel layer. And then I love what happens is the juices from the apple drip down over the edge of the pastry, and you get this caramel edge to the outside of this tart. And that's what makes it quite different than a tarte tatin, which is caramelized fully over the top. There we go. Now, you think of a traditional North American apple pie, you would use 6, even 8 apples. So I just used, these were modest size apples, 2, not even 2.5 apples. So remember, your oven's at 200 degrees Celsius, and Charlotte and Eloise, if you're just still assembling your tart, take the time you need, because with the magic of YouTube, of course I already had to pre-make one so I could show you what it looks like. This is going into the oven for 10 minutes. And then what I do is I pull it out after 10 minutes and I baste it with that remaining butter and sprinkle with the remaining sugar. That way the apples, the first batch of butter and sugar kind of gets absorbed into the apples. It starts cooking, and then those apples keep releasing juices. So that second addition of the butter and the sugar really create that caramelized layer. This is going to go into the oven like so. And then just to recap, you pop it into the oven, set the timer for 10 minutes, baste again with the remaining butter and sugar. Then it goes back into the oven, same temperature, set the timer for 20 minutes. And it depends on your oven. If you have the fan going, it may take just 20 minutes. If you have a still oven, so no fan, you may need to add an extra 5, and you want this beautiful caramelization. It's actually crispy. This tart is crispy at the edges, and you can see when the tart comes out of the oven, those apples will be souffled a little bit, but as it cools, because they're cooked, they'll sink down a little, find their space, and there's a nice natural shine to the top of this tart because of the sugar that's caramelized on top. But to add just a little bit extra, what I like to do is either melt a bit of apple jelly, or if you've got a soft apricot jam, which here in the south of France, boy, they do apricots very well too. So the apricot jam is everywhere. But just a light coating just adds the right amount of sweetness, which I think is needed, really, because this entire apple dessert, you've only added 3 tablespoons, 37 grams of sugar. That's nothing for a dessert. This actually would make a lovely companion if you were eating like a fresh goat cheese or a fresh creamy cheese. You could almost make a cheese course dessert out of this. How's everyone doing? I see we've got quite a few people watching. And Maggie, you're right, you haven't seen this kitchen before. I am in the south of France on a bit of a holiday, but I wanted to spend some time with you and share a bit of what I love about this area, which are the delicious fruits and flavors. And I'm a big fan of cheese, and you already know I'm a big fan of butter. Let's get real here. I've got 3 butters, different butters in my fridge. This is the mild, this is the demi-sel. Oh wait, I have more. There are 2 others in there that a friend knew to bring as a host gift, but I do receive butter as a host gift. And this is artisan butter that they get in a big batch and sold. So love my butter. I do a bit of a taste test when I'm here. So now let me cut into this. How's everyone doing? Oh, how long would the tart keep? That's a very good question, Cherry. Hello, and nice that you're watching from the Philippines. This, once it's baked, you want to serve it, if you can, the day it's made for crispness. You know, that pastry is going to be crisp. Store it in the fridge, but it'll keep for a few days. And remember, there's not a whole lot of sugar in it. So if you wanted to have a little slice of that for breakfast, I am not going to tell anyone. Let me grab a plate here. Don't forget to like this video. And hello to Suzanne from Turkey. Nice to hear you. Lucy is asking, what is my favorite type of apple for a pie? I do, and you hit on it, Lucy. I like to use a blend of apples. So if I'm making a traditional North American apple pie, I tend to use a minimum of 3 apples. I use an apple for body or starch, like a mutsu is sometimes called a crispin, or a russet apple is nice and meaty. I love a Honeycrisp for that textbook apple flavor and balance. And then I like to use a really tart apple, like a Spy or a Spartan, to back it up. So that is a great question to ask. You'll find this tart slices easily, and you can serve it on its own. I'll just move this so you can zoom in, Michael. You can serve it on its own. You can serve it with a scoop of ice cream. And you already know how much I love my dairy. So I've got some raw clotted cream here. Oh, look at that butter yellow color. Just a dollop of that beside. Or if you wanted a creme anglaise, a custard cream, that would be delicious. To me, this is an ideal dessert. Sometimes the simplest desserts really are the best, aren't they? And Emily, you're asking, what is my favorite fall dessert? Well, considering this one's right in front of me, probably this one right now. I am a big fan of pumpkin tarts. And you'll find on my channel, I've recently posted a video for a roasted white chocolate pumpkin pie. That is something else. And the technique of roasting the white chocolate is very interesting, and it adds a lot to the pumpkin pie. You can also take that same filling and put it into a finer tart shell for a more delicate pumpkin tart, because I would say that's my second favorite dessert this time of year. Zig is asking, whatever happened to wine sap apples? I don't think I even know those apples. I'd be interested to find out what they are and where they went. Bramley apples in the UK, you are right, Nana. Those are very good. And I've heard they're excellent for baking. Wafa, yes, I agree. Vanilla ice cream would just be super with this slice of pie. I know this was a short live stream. If you have any questions, other than Cherry, you're obvious, may I have a slice? I wish I could share. And Bonnie, I wish you were down the street because I could deliver you a slice of this pie. Just pop on over. Pop on over. Alden is making a request with for panettone for Christmas. That's a thought. I should let you know in advance. So just a reminder that I will be back here next Thursday, this same time, so 12 noon Eastern time, 6 p.m. in Europe, for another live stream next Thursday. But then starting in mid-November, you know what time of the year it will be. It'll be time for a holiday live stream baking series. So I have 5 holiday baking live stream episodes already lined up, so you can look forward to those. Your notes have been great. Giovanni, yeah, it looks like Neapolitan pizza, but not quite, though we know how good that is, don't we? Everybody, thank you for joining me. Rui, I did shout you out, but I'll say hello again. And everybody, just stay well. Enjoy your apple desserts. I hope I've shared a few simple tips. Charlotte and Eloise, I hope your tarts are coming along well and getting ready to go into the oven. It has been a joy to be here today. And if you have any requests for what you'd like me to make next week, just pop me a little note under this thread. You know this video will get posted on the channel in just a moment, and so you can drop me a note and I'll take a peek and see what you're interested in seeing me make. Bon appetit, everyone. Oh, the crunch of the pastry, and then with that bit of cream, outstanding.